Hi everyone! Today we are going to be making a rag doll. We're just going to talk for a second about dolls because there's so many different kinds of dolls. We have dolls now that talk, we have dolls that walk, we have dolls that do all kinds of wonderful things. But 150 years ago, if you were a small child, your doll didn't do any of those things. And oftentimes you had to create your own doll, depending on how much money your family had and where you lived. Really early on, dolls were sometimes made from corn cobs with just a small piece of fabric wrapped around for a little kerchief, and that was your baby. Okay, so we have a doll here that we'll talk about for a second. This doll is obviously a store-bought doll. Her face is made out of porcelain. So she's probably about 120 years old. So she's a very old girl, but she's a very beautiful doll all the same. She would have been very treasured, and she would have been purchased by a family who had a little more money, because when we lift up her dress a little bit, she has little leather shoes. Okay, so this is a very expensive, very special doll. So that would be for a child whose family had money. If your family did not have money, you would be content with maybe a doll made out of rags. Pioneers made all their own clothing and saved whatever scraps they had left over. They were very handy for patching holes in your clothes, and if you were lucky enough, you might get a doll such as this. This is the type of doll that we're going to be making today. When you open your kit that you've already got at home with you, you will find a whole bunch of fabric strips. You will find 3 shorter white ones. You will find 3 longer white ones. You will find a styrofoam ball. You will find a little triangle that is going to be a hat. The first thing you should probably do is look through your pile of strips and pick one you really like that you think is very pretty and put it aside and leave it. You will also find some yarn that we're going to use to tie different parts of the body. What you will not find are scissors. You're going to need a pair of scissors as well. The scissors are more for just trimming really ragged edges. If you have pieces that are fraying a little bit, don't try and pull the threads, because all you'll do is fray it more. You need to just take your scissors and just give it a little haircut as you go along, okay? The first thing we're going to make are the doll's arms that are sticking out on either side of her body here. And you're going to use your 3 short strips of fabric. Make them all even at the end, so gather them together one on top of the other and make them even. You're going to take a piece of your yarn and you're going to tie the ends all together very tightly. A grown-up may be able to help you with this if you're having a little bit of trouble. So pull it really tight, because we don't want our arms to fall apart. Knot it maybe 2 or 3 times, and then you can trim those pieces. Try not to trim right up to the knot, because sometimes the knot will come undone if you do that. You could just leave a little smidge. Okay? And this is the part where we're going to do some braiding. If braiding isn't something you have done before and you're not familiar with, you can find online lots of videos, instructional videos that will teach you how to braid. I'm going to tell you basically how you do it. You're going to have your 3 strips, and you just keep bringing the outside ones in and cross them over. Okay? So you braid this all the way to the end. And as I mentioned, this is going to become your doll's arms. Just keep braiding. You can give it a little tug to straighten it out. go. Once you've made one of these, you could maybe make one for a friend too. They're kind of fun to make. And once you've made the one, they become easier and easier. It's probably a doll that none of your friends would have. Okay, we're almost there. Getting there. Okay, so let's hold it up and see. I think I better go right to the end. Sometimes you don't need quite as long because you don't want their arms to be super long. I think that looks about right. So I'm going to take another piece of my yarn and tie it around this end really tightly again as well. To make sure her arms hold together. So I've put 2 knots and I'm going to trim the edges. And as you can see, these are her hands. So one hand is looking a little different than the other one. So if you like, you can trim that too. And then we just put this aside for now. Because the next part we're going to make is going to be the body. And you are going to start off with these 3 long strips, the white ones first, before you touch any of your colored ones. And you just do a crisscross applesauce here. I'm going to move this baby a little bit out of the way, need some working space. Right. So make them as flat and smooth as you can. And this is how we're going to start the body. The white is going to end up being her face. So you're going to start to take your strips in the same manner and lay them all out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and be back with you in just a minute. Hi everybody, we're back. And as you can see, I've spent some time laying out all of my fabric pieces, and I've been just making pattern such as this, just laying them randomly around so they look like a nice bright shiny star. Okay, so now I've got them all down. I'm going to now pick up my styrofoam head and I'm going to put it right in the very center. So again, a grown-up may be able to assist you at this point because this can be a little bit tricky, and after laying all of these down, you don't want to get frustrated. So you need to slip your hand underneath all of them and scoop them up in your hand like that and flip it over. Okay? And as you can see, we now have a head. And the white is the face. I'm going to take a piece of yarn and secure this very tightly. So probably 2 or 3 knots you'll want to do at this point. There's 2, let's do 1 more for good keeping. There we go. And then we're going to trim it. Again, don't trim right at the knot, just a little bit off from there. And there we go. Next step, we're going to insert the arms. So we're going to take our dolly and stand her on her head. We're going to separate all of these fabric pieces so they're kind of in half. You've got half on one side and half on the other. Grab your arms and centering it over that point, lay it in between the fabric. And again, grab it all with your hand and flip it over. And then you can see her little arms are now sticking out. Okay, so you might want to straighten her up a little bit here. See, she now has arms. But unless we tie this here, the arms are going to fall out. So I'm going to take another piece of my yarn and lay her flat on her face and tie it at the back. And this will form her torso or her body. Again, tying a number of times. 1, 2, and 3. And give it a little snip. So you can see how she's starting to come together. Okay, she has her face here. She has her arms now, a little bit of a body. And so now that one special piece you've been saving is going to become a little shawl for her. So starting around the back of her neck, just drape it over her shoulders, such as they are, and cross it in the front, like that. So you see she's wearing a little bit of a shawl. And again, we need to tie it. So we're going to lie her again flat on her face, slipping her piece of yarn under there, and you're going to tie it probably at the same point you tied the body, so she doesn't look all lumpy. There we go. And you can see now she's really coming together. We're going to put her hat on next. Here's her little kerchief. So you see the points are even. And I'm going to lie her on her back this time. And I will choose, you can lie her on her front or her back, whichever you prefer. I'm going to choose to tie it underneath her chin. And maybe I'll tie it in a little bow this time. But you can tie it in a knot if you like as well. There we go, and I'll just give it a little trim. So there, she now has arms, her hat, she has her little shawl on. If you like, you can take a marker and give her little eyes and a mouth. And you see that probably she's going to have different lengths of skirt. So if it is your choice, you can choose to trim them off to make them more even, or she can just go all gangly the way she was. Okay? And so there you have the first rag doll you've ever made. Congratulations. Enjoy.